You're listening to the Really Useful Podcast. This is the tech podcast for technophobes from makeuseof.com. My name is Christian Corley, his name is Ben Stegner, and his name is Gavin Phillips. It's all three of us together! Yay! That's fun. So guys, how are you? Ben, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Just coming off of a nice couple days off for Thanksgiving, so glad to be here. It's good to have the three of us together again.
And Gavin, how are you, sir?
Very, very well, actually. Ben had a nice old weekend, and looking forward to getting stuck into this year's tech, eh?
Yeah, this is, we're recording this in late November. You'll get this a little bit later on towards the end of the year. And this is our really useful podcast review of the year. It's a special episode. There's all three of us here for the first time in about a year, and we're here to discuss our highlights, our lowlights or low points, best devices and best game of 2022. It's a little bit of a diversion for us, so this is going to be quite interesting to see how this turns out. It might only be 10 minutes long. Who knows? In which case, Happy New Year, dear listener. So we're going to kick this off. I'm not entirely sure how we're going to separate these. I suppose you should probably just do it the usual way with... So 2022 has, like pretty much every other year, except those two quiet ones where nothing happened, a busy year in consumer tech. So we're going to start off this really useful podcast special with our highlight of the year in consumer tech. And how we're going to do this is for each category, each of us will offer a highlight or an example, and then say why it is that highlight, or in the case of the next section, the low light or low point of the year. I feel slightly responsible for this format, that I should maybe go first. But if I do go first, it takes away some of the drama of what I would say is the highlight of the year in consumer tech for me. So who wants to go first?
I would not like to go first, so...
I don't mind going first, but I'm not sure if mine's necessarily what you would consider a highlight.
Okay.
It's certainly maybe not a high point in the conventional sense of the term.
Oh dear,
but,
I'm wondering if we're all going to watch the same thing.
So my highlight is sort of Meta sort of crashing and burning a bit.
Oh, okay, that's fine. No, you go with that.
Yeah, so so that's what I mean. It's not in the conventional sense, like, you know, an outright highlight, but I feel in the sense of the world of tech as a whole, and for what Meta has been trying to do throughout 2022. So for the listener, I'll just, at the start of the year, we had all the hubbub with metaverse rollout and closer integration with NFTs, and we were going to conduct all of our business online looking like Nintendo Wii
I'm
avatars.
amazed we took it seriously. I really am.
And you think that was only a few months ago, and since then, and at the time of recording, Meta's both monetary and overall stock has fallen considerably. Now they are not crashing and burning by any means. Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp are still phenomenally large companies. They're still raking it in, but seeing Mark Zuckerberg's overall plans to force everyone into a product that was solely about advertising being pushed back quite hard against, I just really enjoyed that. I don't know how you guys felt, but there was a real, is schadenfreude the right word I'm looking for here? Like laughing at someone else's misery, or
Yeah, I think it is. I'm so pleased you chose this, because it gives us the opportunity to share that excellent, if anyone hasn't seen it, you need to see it now, article on The Onion, headlined Facebook HQ on lockdown after Mark Zuckerberg's avatar breaks out of metaverse.
Oh yeah, that is fantastic. I think what's interesting about it, I agree with what you said, Gavin. It's kind of weird that just 6 or 8 or 10 months ago, the whole thing was, this is going to be the future and everyone's going to have meetings in the metaverse and we're going to date in the metaverse and all that stuff. I remember when this was starting to kind of be pushed a little bit more. I was listening to a podcast or something that wasn't techie, and it was interesting to kind of think about it from a non-techie person's side too, of like when they showed off that demo, I think it was from a few years ago, but that Walmart demo of like how you're going to shop in the metaverse. And it was like, this combines the worst of in-person shopping and online shopping. Like there's no benefit to this. And yeah, I think the idea that everybody's just going to buy these Oculus or Meta Quest devices and just have them on their face all the time for going to the store and having meetings and stuff, that's a really hard sell. So, I mean, I guess they would plan to have better devices. You wouldn't have to, strap on your head for hours like that. But it is kind of weird that was like supposed to be this big thing, like the next iPhone.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I can't really say anything more about it than you guys have. It seemed a little bit silly and far-fetched at the time to see that it actually is silly and far-fetched and that it's kind of the bottom's fallen out of it. As Gavin said, I agree, yes. Heavy dose, I'm getting my German pronunciations on the wrong word there. Heavy dose of Schadenfreude about it. The thing is, there's a heavy, it's very Emperor's New Clothes. There's a lot of people who were sat pointing and didn't say anything or didn't say anything loudly about it when they should have done. People in respected online journals. So it's not surprised that that it's heading the way it has, but I think a lot of credibility has been lost on that this year, for some people anyway. I guess shall we move on to mine then?
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, mine's in a similar vein as you may have guessed. My highlight of the year is Elon Musk buying Twitter. Okay. I think it's absolutely. Do you know? Right. I mean, it's upset a lot of people, and a lot of people are professionally upset about everything. So I'm not too bothered about those. Twitter was an absolute hellhole, and I'm not saying it's considerably better now, but it feels like people with a direction of Western values are in charge of Twitter. It's a huge thing that has a big profile, but at the same time isn't really representative of everything that's happening in the world. So I'm very careful not to overstate this. But it was a mess, and certain things have happened since then, which I'm not particularly enthused about. But one thing that has happened, which I've checked on through a couple of different references, and I'm reliably informed that the majority of child pornography has been removed from Twitter. Now, that's kind of an important thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, as a very base level of what we should deem acceptable, however you view politics, removing filth like that from a public platform is, an overall win for society as a whole.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a long way still to go on that, but for sure. It was treading water, and a lot of people were getting their way at the expense of other people. It didn't feel like it was a balanced platform for expressing an opinion on. Whereas now it feels more balanced. I'm pretty sure I'm right in that, because a lot of the people who are getting their own way before are now losing their shit on Twitter. Excuse my phraseology there, dear listener, and getting a bit frustrated that they have to listen to opinions that they don't like. And I come from a place where you need to listen to opinions that you don't like, because you might actually learn something. And I've learned plenty over the years from having balanced and interesting debates, not always balanced, I suppose. Sometimes they're more one-sided than others, but I think that's how it works. That's how we learn about things. And just having your own echo chamber, I take great care in making sure I follow a wide selection of people from across the political spectrum, for example, and often I don't agree with the majority of them. But it's important to have voices rather than having an echo chamber. And I think Twitter's very much a case of you have an echo chamber, and that's, it's, the feedback loop and all that. I'm not saying Elon Musk couldn't get rid of that, because obviously, there's a lot of things Twitter's a big, complicated thing, and a lot of people are still going to retain their little echo chambers and their block lists and their special word lists, and and their lists. Is lists still a thing on Twitter? I don't know, but it does feel like it's been a change for the better overall to me.
I think it's still pretty early to see. I mean, I think there's been some small things, like you said, that I agree with, and I like the idea of kind of leveling the playing field and getting rid of the echo chamber like that. But I was going to bring up something specific about Twitter for my low point, which is probably just recency bias, but I do think it was one of the most bizarre, like, how did this happen things in recent tech memory. So I'll save that for the next section.
Okay. Anything to add, Gavin?
Not entirely. I know we sort of touched on this in a previous podcast, Christian. Only kind of, I guess it's the same as Ben said. I think there's a long way to go with how Elon is going to shape it. I'm not 100% sure that throwing out ideas in the way that Elon Musk does and then rowing back on them and changing things every 10 minutes and not even like ruling by committee, sort of ruling by the votes on his timeline. And I'm guessing he's one of the most followed accounts on Twitter. That would make sense. But if a large proportion of his issue with Twitter was the bots and stuff like that, I would say he's got a long way to go.
Oh, definitely. Oh, yes.
And if he is making decisions using that method, which you've seen him do several times since taking over, he's using bots to inform his decisions on a platform he bought to get rid of the bots, which I think, I mean, for me, that's idiotic. But I'm not the world's richest man, and I probably never will be. So
what would you know?
Yeah, exactly. What would I know? I'm a blooming peasant in Cornwall, in England. We don't even have gas heating in our house. God.
That's a good point, though, that like polls specifically are definitely like really ripe to abuse from bots. Because I was going to say, you're right about that. Like, on the one hand, it's interesting to see someone that high up's thought process of just like kicking around ideas and being open to it on one level. But then at the same time, you're right that like you can't have every discussion you have at a high level about making changes like public and then just, like you said, introduce stuff and then roll it back 15 minutes later. Like, that's just a mess. Like, someone took a screenshot of 2 tweets from Twitter support where the first one said, we're not going to use an official badge for accounts that have proven to be from a brand or whatever. And then like 8 hours later, it was, we're rolling out an official badge for accounts that have proven like, I get if it's like 2 weeks later and like the first try didn't work and now you're changing it, but like that's like whiplash when it's happening.
Well, this is it. And part of this as well, I know we don't want to spend heaps of time on this, but it seems like in the cull of Twitter employees, and I completely think there probably did need to be a big cull because the employment numbers you heard did sound bonkers.
Insane.
But besides that point, it seems like the notion of A/B testing has disappeared. And on a platform as big as Twitter, and although Twitter isn't as big as Facebook, say, anything like that, it's in the order of magnitude in terms of user numbers. We're talking hundreds of millions to billions here. The accounts on Twitter are way more important than accounts on Facebook and stuff like that. Yet you see way more stringent testing on ideas, changes and stuff like that on things like Facebook, when those accounts actually overall have less value, if you see what I mean here.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Facebook does that pretty often. I mean, when we write articles, there's always that like, hey, are you seeing this? Like this is rolling out over like months and months, whereas Twitter is more, hey, there's a change, everybody gets it immediately.
Yeah. Well, Ben, let's move on quickly to your high point of the year then.
Yeah, so I was thinking a little bit about the overall theme of the year and something I kind of liked across the whole year. And my pick is actually improvements in the right to repair movement or whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
Nice. I looked it up, and actually I think Apple announced their self-service program at the end of last year, but it actually became available in the US this year. So the 2 biggest highlights are in April of this year, Apple launched its self-service repair store in the US. I think it's coming to Europe either late this year or sometime next year. And then in August, they expanded it to some MacBooks as well as the iPhone. A couple of states in the U.S. also passed legislation that would require shops to provide tools to repair some equipment, not just tech, but some other things like that. Google announced a program for fixing Pixel phones, and then the EU also took some steps over in Europe on the same thing. So this actually wasn't something I was really plugged into at all until I really started writing for the site, and then a couple of folks at the site are really passionate about it, and it kind of opened my eyes to this. I'm not too good with my hands myself, so I haven't taken too many advantage of this too much. But I do think it's a really important thing as tech becomes more expensive, and a good way to actually get more life out of a device than just buy it, use it, and throw it away or whatever. So it's nice to see steps in this direction this year.
Yeah, that's a really good choice, Ben. I feel slightly guilty that mine wasn't that good. Okay, so we'll flip it around now. The low point of the year in tech for the Really Useful Podcast team. And I suppose we really need to keep things kind of square, so they're in order each way around. That wasn't code for I'm a Freemason, by the way. Just underline that there. Gavin, you're going first.
Thank you. I guess the low point of the year for me, on a personal level, has been the ongoing turmoil in the world of crypto. I don't know how much that's affected you guys, if at all.
I was hoping you were going to say how much is that Dogecoin in the window then.
Yeah, how much is that Dogecoin in the window? Yeah, I can see that.
Crypto for me, I've like very loosely followed it from afar, and I see things that you guys talk about in Slack, but I'm definitely not super involved in the world of it, kind of watching from afar with caution, I suppose.
Absolutely. So the crypto winter, the so-called crypto winter, has been ongoing now for basically all of 2022.
Winter's coming.
Yeah, winter is... Oh, I think winter's here. I think we're like deep in the permafrost at this point.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies have not done very well at all. There have been some good points. So I'll point to like the Ethereum 2.0 merge, where Ethereum switched from being an energy guzzling cryptocurrency to one that uses barely energy at all. So, in a bad year for crypto, that was a really good point. But I think anybody involved in crypto has probably not had a very good year. And as someone who writes and uses crypto, I am one of them.
Yeah. I have a tiny amount of crypto myself. And I think we spoke about this a few weeks ago, Gavin, over the past couple of years, and I think probably the lockdowns had something to do with this as well. Kind of just everybody has been able to get into crypto. I recounted the fact that my wife's uncle bought crypto, and he's like the most tech-averse person that you can think of, aside from using a mobile phone for his taxi business. And he bought a decent amount of Litecoin. I haven't spoken to him about it over the past few months, so I don't know how he's feeling about things, whether he's still got them, whether he's flogged them for the pennies that they're now worth. I really don't know. But I think that's the peak during the lockdown years, and the opportunity for just people to have spare money lying around, because they weren't able to go anywhere. They had all this disposable income that needed to be disposed of. Crypto was an excellent outlet for them. And I guess there's a bit of a thrill to be gained from buying the crypto coin. So maybe it wasn't completely a worthless act, but it's affected far more people than it would have done 2 or 3 years ago, hasn't it?
Yeah, I really think it has. And recent events in the world of cryptocurrency. So there's been 2 big exchanges that have gone bankrupt and taken, billions upon billions of dollars of investor money with them. And because of the nature of crypto, because it is unregulated, that's what draws so many people to it. But it's also, it ruins people's lives, I think. And like, my life is absolutely fine. You always follow the adage, do not invest more than you can afford to lose.
Sure.
But sometimes people, I don't think, realize quite how much they stand to lose from when they go in with their investments, particularly things like you were saying during lockdown, you know, if you invested at 60,000 in Bitcoin and it went down to 16, which is at the moment, I mean, that's more than a hit that most people can possibly take, you know, especially if you invested a real whack of money into it, you know. So, yeah, crypto sucks.
Yeah.
At least it's been exciting though, right? And it's a lot more exciting than normal investing.
Yeah, I guess it's like the edge of your pants, like constant adrenaline.
I suppose
the
it's
thrill
had
being at the casino all year long.
Yeah, exactly.
I suppose it's probably had a kind of a positive side to it, maybe. I mean, depending on, you know, what your exposure is to. Not in a bad way, just, you know, your exposure and understanding of stocks and shares. It might have got people more interested in actually investing their money wisely, rather than just throwing it at things. So, I don't know.
That's true, yeah. Somebody could have wanted to jump on the bandwagon, and then when they see that crypto is volatile and has all these problems that Gavin's talking about, maybe they think, well, I like the idea, but let's go to something a little more stable with less risk.
Exactly. I know eToro became more popular, and I use an app called Free Trade, although, you know, we talk about £30. I have my real investments are elsewhere. So I'm going to move on to my low point of the year, and it's kind of a low point that hasn't happened yet. I suppose in some ways the crypto low point could continue going low. Mine is the Activision and Microsoft merger / buyout. I think and I know it is in trouble at the moment, but the whole idea of it just absolutely blows my mind that it would even be considered to be something that they could actually get through regulators. I think it's an absolute disgrace that it should be taking place at all. Microsoft should not have that chunk of the gaming market to itself, regardless of how they plan to, you know, issue PlayStation games and other platform games or otherwise. It's just not something that should be considered. It's almost like the Meta thing, because it's on paper. It's like, you can't do that. It's insane. What are you playing at? It doesn't make any sense. It's just, and it also, the other thing about it is, it recalls the old the memorable old adage of Bill Gates buying people out and then stealing their technology. Now that's clearly not going to happen with Activision Blizzard, but I am obviously minded of the famous Simpsons episode where Homer sets up his own internet company and then Bill Gates comes down to buy him out.
Hypercomputer global meganet. Sorry, man.
I've seen like snippets of just arguments that the companies have been making over this on Twitter. I haven't followed it super closely, but I saw that Bayonetta 3 recently came out on Switch, and Sony like used that as an example of saying like Nintendo wasn't a family-friendly company. Like, I think they're trying to make it sound like that other companies are more like them, so that there's like more room for the buyout or something. Like their arguments are very sketchy, to put it nicely, of like, why, hey, this is fine, this is why we should do this. Yeah, I mean, Activision Blizzard is already a massive, like, think about Call of Duty, Diablo, Overwatch, Candy Crush, like that's all under their umbrella now. Like that's enough, I would say, when you add in.
Well, that's the other side of it. They've been buying up IPs for years, Activision and Activision Blizzard. So for them to then get swallowed up by Microsoft, that's not good. It's also bad for retro gaming as well, I think.
I mean, I've watched YouTube videos from just smaller independent creators, and they've talked about, with this whole thing, you know, Call of Duty maybe only being on Xbox and all the fight over that and that kind of thing. But there's a lot of implications for it too. Like you said, like how I believe that when Bethesda or ZeniMax, Bethesda's owners, were bought by Microsoft, it was the same kind of thing where, you know, future Bethesda games are going to be exclusive to Xbox, at least at first. So what that could mean for retro, you know, to maybe they pull digital retro games off of the PlayStation storefronts or that kind of thing. Yeah, it is nice when there's more, you know, more competition with consoles. Hasn't really been a thing for a while because all the new ones have kind of failed. But yeah, it's...
Yeah, I mean, Activision's more or less as old as Microsoft, so it has a huge history of developing computer games, IP games. I mean, there's Activision games in the room with me now. I can't actually see them because they're in a box, and I'm not going to racket about. So I think the old Ghostbusters game on the C64 on the Spectrum, I think that was Activision. They've been in the game a long, long time. There's a huge implications for this beyond like the big chunk of this huge kind of industry chunk that they currently control. It goes beyond that. It goes back decades. So it's really, really concerning that should all end up under Microsoft. Very worrying. So that's my low point. Ben, what's yours?
Well, I have a couple that are all small, if that's okay. So,
okay.
My personal low point for the year, this is a very small anecdotal story, is building a PC in February when graphics card prices were still insane. Thinking, they'll always be, they're still going to be nuts. So I paid like twice what my graphics card was worth, and then like 3 months later, it was down to regular price. So, live and learn, I guess. It had been long enough to where I thought it's going to be up this high for years. So I just figured whatever. But it is what it is. I use my computer every day, so it's still worth the money. The one I alluded to earlier is the whole open verification on Twitter thing. I know that's kind of a minor thing, and you guys both talked about like wider things for the year, but I just have no idea what they were thinking with that open verification on Twitter, where you wasn't even verifying that you were who you say you are. It's just pay the money and get the check. And then, you had people tweeting like pretending to be an insulin company and saying, hey, we're going to give insulin out for free now. And then their stock dropped like $1 billion the next day because everybody thought it was actually the company. Like it reminded me of like that scam on Twitter a couple years ago where they hijacked like internal tools and then like legitimate verified accounts like the Apple account, Barack Obama's account were tweeting out Bitcoin, like pay me and I'll pay you back scams. Like I feel like it was one of the worst Twitter scams since then. And just like because it looks real. Like if you're not paying attention, you're not going to see that there's like an I instead of an L in the Twitter handle or whatever. Yeah. And I guess my third small one to round up is Stadia finally running out of gas. That's not really a full. That's not really a full one, I guess, because it kind of started years ago. So it's the stunning conclusion of Stadia just being done. Yeah.
Well, it finally closes in January, and they've started, quote unquote, processing refunds. And I've had emails saying that my refunds have been processed, but I haven't actually had the money yet. So.
That is really nice to see. I mean, I'm glad that could very easily be like.
I haven't seen the money yet. I mean, it's nice to see.
No. I'm sorry. the fact
that's not
the fact that the
Ben Stegner I know
refunds. Yeah, I don't want you to have any money back. The fact that they are issuing refunds, like they could very easily just say, you're out of luck. Like you enjoyed the games for X years or whatever. Yeah. So that is nice.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a logical nightmare or logistical to try to.
I think even for a company of Google size and stature to turn around and do that would have, I don't know. I mean, what would anybody have done anyway if they had just said, nope, sorry, goodbye. But like you said, it is good to see them at least honoring and refunding where possible. Hopefully we get an update about your refund come the 2023 roundup, Christian.
Let's hope so, yes. They what would be nice as well is if they would issue a kind of a firmware update for the controllers as well to unlock the Bluetooth, which is apparently built into them but disabled, so that they can be connected to PCs wirelessly and other game consoles. I think as well, before we move on as well, a low point of the year. I did toy around with this, but I'm not entirely sure whether it's a low point. I mean, it is a low, and that's the availability of the Raspberry Pi. I was just writing about it earlier today. It hasn't got any better. It's more likely that there'll be a Raspberry Pi 5 around before there's an affordable Raspberry Pi 4 again. And the whole situation with that and supply chain logistics and availability, and I can understand them prioritizing educational establishments. Because that's what it was for, and the compute modules being prioritized for industry and IoT applications. I can understand that entirely. It's just a shame that even the Raspberry Pi 02W, which came out last year, was about £25 to £30, roughly the same in dollars, $40, $50. It's now $110.
Oh my!
Whoa!
And that's just a tiny little half-size Raspberry Pi. So it is It is a bit insane with that. Okay. It's the next bit. It's the best device bit of the show. What is the best device of 2022 that you have used? Gavin Phillips.
I'm actually going to go for the Nothing Phone 1, which I wasn't sure if I was going to when you sent through our list of what we were going to talk about. But I've sat and looked at a few things I've had and owned and reviewed and played with throughout the year. And it's become like my go-to phone over the OnePlus Nord that I have. I use it all the time. I've got really into the sort of it's got the light up glyphs on the back, which are, I guess, fairly pointless, but they're kind of cool at the same time. And your phone rings or it lights up in a specific way, and if you got a message or whoever tried to call you or whatever. And nothing adding more functionality to it all of the time and getting better integration and adding small upgrades to it. I don't think I would normally ever choose a smartphone either, because I find smartphone tech it's really hard to make really big leaps and bounds in the world of smartphones. And I'm not particularly wowed by folding phones either. The ones that I have seen and used, I'm fairly ambivalent towards. It's interesting, but it's not anything I really care a great deal about, especially at this early phase. But whilst the Nothing Phone 1 didn't really push any areas massively, it was cool to see another new smartphone manufacturer coming to market, making a pretty decent mid-range phone that retailed $300, maybe $400, and could compete with quite a lot of other phones. Yeah, so that's my my pick of the year. Oh, the only downside I would say, and the thing that will continually hold it back, is that it's still not available in the US. It doesn't work on US networks, or maybe it does at this point, but I think you maybe have to hack some stuff to get it going. And certainly at launch back in the middle of 2022, it categorically didn't work. So for a phone that wants to take on all of the big tech companies, for it to not work in one of the most important tech markets in the world is a bit silly, really. But yeah, so that's my pick.
I when it came out, I thought the idea was interesting. Like, I saw the headlines on it, and I kind of wanted to, like, I would like to check it out in a Best Buy or something. But yeah, I haven't seen it here for the reason you mentioned. Can you customize those lights on the back, like green light for text, blue light for Telegram or whatever?
You can't, unfortunately. They're all white LEDs, but I have seen on like a Nothing forum on Discord or whatever, people who buy color strips and put them over the top to give themselves colored LEDs. That's not for me. It is one way to do it. It's not for me personally. I think it looks a bit tacky, but yeah, if you want to do that, then by all means go for it. Like my favorite case manufacturer, Spigen, however you say it, Spigen, just released a case for the Nothing Phone 1 as well, which is great because they make, I mean, we don't do sponsorship deals on the Reviews for podcast, but they make incredibly good cases. So it just means I'm going to use it even more.
I agree. I like their cases. I've been not sponsored or anything. I agree. Been using them for years. Like that. I like a thin case that is going to protect it, but it's not like a drop it from 20 stories kind of like massive OtterBox case. Yeah, so I like those too. And it's great that it's a nice mid-range phone too, because as I've talked about before on the show, I was a big fan of the Nexus phones for years. I thought they did a really good job of having near flagship specs at like a mid-range price. Like, it didn't feel like you were using a just so phone. So I was really happy with those. So it's nice to have that kind of phone that goes for the pure Android, like no frills, just a solid device for the price. So that sounds great to me.
Right. Well, I mean, I was going to do a phone.
Oh.
So
I'm sorry, I've stolen your thunder.
Yeah, I feel like my thunder has been stolen somewhat. However, there is a. No, I can't. I'm going to have to do a phone because my alternative came out at the end of last year. So I'm doing a phone. I was going to do the Evercade VS, but it did come out in December last year. So my phone, my best piece of tech of the year. Now listen, the fact that I've gone for phone is amazing. As I was speaking to Ben before we started recording, I was digging up some old photos. I accidentally dug up some old photos from older phones. What I didn't mention, this was on my OneDrive, what I didn't mention, Ben, is that these were mostly taken on Microsoft Lumia Windows phone on a Windows 10 mobile device. And I really loved those phones. They had beautiful cameras. They were quick, slick, easy to use. They were nice. It was just a nice experience using them. And I probably, aside from a couple of Sonys in the interim, I haven't really had a great experience with phones until I was asked to review the Oppo Reno 8 Pro during the summer of 2022. And this phone, I mean, it was one of my highest ever rating on a review on Make Use Of. I gave it a 9, and I didn't do that for fun. It's really such a good phone. I love it. I've never wanted to be without it. It's light. It's slim, although it has a little bulged area for the camera and sensor. It has a mirrored reverse, so that makes taking selfies easy. It has a thumbprint reader. It's fast. It's, unfortunately, is probably very difficult to get hold of in the United States and indeed in the UK as well, as Oppo seems to be mobile company non grata in a lot of territories. And I did have my reservations because I do have a general anti-Chinese phone stance. I realise that that's slightly controversial these days, but that's just it's a privacy thing. So, and yet this is such a good phone, and it takes amazing photos. It has a 50 megapixel rear camera and a 32 megapixel front camera. It's running Android 12, and although it has a thing called Color OS, which is Oppo's own take on Android, it's more or less the same as the mainline Android, though there's very few differences. This model has 12 gigabytes of storage. It charges to 50% in 11 minutes. It's superb. It really is such a good phone, and it has 256 gigabytes of storage built in, which is just as well because it does not have a slot for a memory card. I think I'm right in saying, but it does have a USB Type-C slot for charging, and the usual USB OTG. It's such a good phone. I would recommend it to anyone. It is the best phone I've had in a very long time indeed, and that is why it is my choice for the best device of 2022.
Is that fingerprint scanner built into the screen? I haven't used a phone that has that feature. Okay.
It is, yes.
Does that work pretty well?
It's amazingly how well it works. I've got it set up for everything, almost. Occasionally it doesn't get it the first time, but it nearly always gets it the second time. So
okay. I've never used a OnePlus phone. When I was looking at moving away from the Nexus phones, I want to say, it was years ago when I was looking at getting a new phone at the time. I think that was when, I forget what OnePlus phone it was, but it looked pretty solid, and I was kind of going back and forth, and I ended up not getting it. So I've heard good things about them, though. Is that like a mid-range phone, or is it more like a flagship?
This is an Oppo. They're not OnePlus, are they?
Yeah, they're owned by the same company.
Are they? Right, I beg your pardon.
Yeah. Well, they're not one and the same, but they are owned by the same parent company, and they have
right.
Yeah.
Well, the Reno 8 Pro is around, I think, $700 or so.
Okay.
So that's mid range, isn't it? Because like top of the range would be like 1,200 ish. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and it's
yeah.
I mean, in terms of the camera alone and the display, it's top quality specs for me. It I think it we quantified it as being sort of a mid range based on the benchmarking. It came in around the same place as Motorola Edge S30 and Xiaomi Redmi K40 and a Xiaomi Civi. So it's the top end of mid range. It's such a good phone. I'm so pleased with it, and I've no faults over it at all. which is very new. I can always find a fault in something. I've never found a fault with this at all. So pleased with it. Recommended. Ben.
Nice.
What's yours?
Yeah, so I didn't really get too many new devices this year, so it's a little hard for me to recommend something from 2022. My kind of stand-in pick, if you will, is I just actually got a pair of AirPod Pro 2nd generation a couple weeks ago, and for like a Black Friday deal. And so far, I am quite happy with them. It's one of those things where I've only had like cheap earbuds before, so I didn't realize not really how good they can sound, just like the little features. Like I've had a like $30 pair of earbuds. I've had good headphones and good speakers, but never just wireless earbuds. So my favorite feature that's really nice is the toggle between noise cancellation and what they call transparency. So noise cancellation is obvious, but the transparency mode is like it uses the microphone to play the sound more clearly around you. So like if you want to block out the sound of the world, but then you need to hear something for a bit, you can put the transparency on to switch so you can hear what's going on around you, and vice versa. And there's also a mode to like automatically filter out super loud sounds when you have transparency on. So I wouldn't use it as like, hearing protection while you're mowing the lawn or whatever. But if there was like a super loud sound that would hurt your ears, it would like filter that out. So I haven't used them a ton yet, but I'm definitely happy with them early on. So also my kind of secondary pick, I got an LG C1 4K OLED TV last like November for Black Friday, and I've loved that TV. I was like going back and forth on whether I wanted to spend it because it was more expensive or just get like a middle or range TV. And this TV like is amazing. Like the picture is insane. It's 120 hertz, which is really nice for PS5 games that are supporting that now. The OS is so much better than my old Samsung TV that I had before that was always clunky. So I'm super happy with that TV as well. So I've enjoyed that this year, even though I bought it last year.
We can't include that. If we can't include the Evercade VS, we can't include that TV.
So that's why I threw it in at the end there.
So Ben, how do you find the fit of the AirPods versus like a traditional silicone tip earbud? If you've been using those before, have you noticed much difference?
Yeah, so the AirPods include like 5 different tip sizes to put in your ear, and the first ones are the ones that I use, and they were fine. My other one, I think they were Boltune was the brand of the other ones I've used, and they like push in my ear okay, but then if I if I laugh at something in a podcast, or if I like open my mouth or tilt my head too far one way, they like want to pop out. I mean, they don't like drop out of my ear, but they like come out to the point where like the sound is hard to hear. So yeah, these AirPods, I mean, they're not, not perfect yet, but I haven't tried the other tip sizes yet, but the default feel way better. Like they just kind of rest in your ear and they don't want to like be pushed out as soon as I like laugh or open my mouth or whatever. So yeah, so far a lot better. I'll see how I feel about like extended wearing of them, because sometimes after I wear certain kinds of earbuds for a while, it's just want to get them out. They're kind of irritating, but
yeah, you get the like ear fatigue, despite it feeling comfy for an hour. After 2, it's like, no, out now.
I had that with these HyperX headphones that I've had for years. I actually just recommended somebody in our Slack asked for a good mid-range pair of gaming headphones, and I've had these for years, and I had that same problem with the initial ear cups. It's hard to explain. It hurt my head in the sense of like, when I had them on, I didn't feel anything, but then when I took them off, it was like, it felt like the bones in my face hurt. I don't know if that makes sense. Kind of that same way you get with like the ear fatigue, where your ear's just like tired and hurts. Like not hurt like someone punched you, but just like that. It's hard to explain, but
like a dull ache.
Yeah, kind of like that, like a toothache, but like in your like in your ear bone, I guess.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean, because I review lots of different headphones and earbuds for make use of, and you can tell, I can tell, quite quickly these days which headphones are going to start hurting quite quickly, and I've got a pair that I was sent maybe 4 months ago now, which is very bad on my behalf. But whenever I put them on, they start hurting within 20 minutes. So I can't wear them effectively long enough to review their audio quality properly. So they're just sort of sitting there on my desk gathering dust. But that is besides the point, and it's good to hear that the earbuds fit really well. That's good to hear.
Good. That brings us to I nearly said that point in the show where we do our recommendations then, but no, not this time. It brings us to our final category of our 2022 review of the year, the best video game. Now, I'm going to let Gavin go here first because that's how we've done this. But I've got nothing to add. No, go for it, Gavin. What's your favourite game? What's your best? No.
Oh.
Everything has been new in 2022, so we've got to stick to that, haven't we? And I know that's difficult with games.
Yeah.
I've managed it, and I play a lot of old games, so I'm pretty confident you guys can manage it as well. So, Gavin, what have you got?
Yeah, well, I've talked about this in a previous podcast as well, but I'm going with it again because I just love it. And it's Vampire Survivors.
Oh, I saw that mentioned earlier today. Yes.
Yeah, it's such a great game. It's so ridiculously cheap for the amount of gameplay you get. I don't know how many hours I've got on it on Steam now, but I think I paid £6, which I guess is like $9 or something. It's not in early access anymore, but they're still adding heaps of content to the core game. And it's a top-down game. You control a character, you move around the screen. It fills up with baddies. You've got to go through, you've got to, take them all down. You get power-ups and all this sort of stuff. You earn coins, which you can then use to unlock additional power-ups from the main menu. And it's a cycle of building up the powers. You also unlock different levels that grant you different skills as well. And within those levels, you can earn like permanent power-ups and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's a game of like feedback loops, basically. But despite its seemingly simple sound, it's really, really good fun. And you can go for like a half an hour session, play through it, and you're done. Or you can go for an hour and you can play through a couple of levels. And what I like most about it, I think, specifically, is in the evening time, perhaps you don't want to dedicate your entire time to getting really focused into one game. You want to maybe play a game and watch something or listen to something, a bit of multimedia going on. And I find Vampire Survivor, works really well with that. Like if you've got a dual screen setup, especially, you could have it on one screen, you like look across to the other one, you move it around, you're still hearing and listening and engaging. And it's just a really good sort of, it's casual enough that you can dip in and out of it, but if you wanted to spend several hours getting really stuck into it, you could do that as well, which I think makes for a really good game. And like I said, especially at that price point.
Sounds excellent. And how much is it? £6? $7?
I think it was
$5 on Steam right now. Well, not on the sale, but yeah, it's $5 normally. It looks like.
Well, that's excellent.
There you go. So $5 on Steam. So that'd be even cheaper in the UK. More expensive. I can't remember which way around it is, but anyway, it's extremely cheap for how much gameplay you get. It really is.
Yeah, that's superb. That really is great value. Okay, mine is. I'm regret to say, a little bit obvious. Really, it's not as inventive or interesting as Gavin's, but I do think it's the best game of 2022, and certainly the best new game I've played in 2022 that wasn't previously released in any form before that. Although some people might say it's Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga on the Nintendo Switch specifically.
Okay.
It is everything that was wrong with the old Star Wars Lego Star Wars games, it fixes, and you've got this huge open world, you've got all the adventures to carry on with, all the little side quests, you've got the comedy bits, which feel like they've been pulled straight out. I don't know if it's the same writers, I should look it up, but it feels very much a part of that same universe as the Lego Star Wars cartoon series. It's great. It's really good. It's fun. It's a good multiplayer game for just exploring. I play it alongside Bruce, my eldest, from time to time. when he's playing it. Usually when he's not, he spends a lot of time playing the first Batman Arkham game on his Wii.
Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, on his Wii U, because he got stuck and he's gone back. He's basically restarted the game because he reckons there's something he didn't do that he was supposed to do in order to unlock the next stage, which is getting into Mr. Freeze's lair or something. I haven't played the game myself, so I'm not too certain of the details. So he's been doing that a lot lately rather than playing on the Switch. I've been playing on the Switch mostly. I'm playing retro games mostly on the Switch. But when he's been interested in playing on the Switch, this is what we've been playing together. And it's just a fun explorer, typical Lego game. It's the same developers as all the previous Lego games, Traveller's Tales, but it's just good. It's worth playing. And fun. That's what you want from a game, isn't it?
Yeah. If it's not fun, why bother, as a wise man once said.
Exactly. So, Ben.
Yeah, so my top game of the year, as you said earlier, like I actually tend to like kind of put games on my wish list, and then when they drop in sale, I play them later. So I don't always play games the year they came out either. But this one, I'm thankful that I did. And I think I mentioned it on a show before, but it's definitely worth repeating, is Tunic, that came out on, it was on Xbox originally, and I think it's on every system now. Tunic is... I would describe it as kind of like if you want to describe it as a comparison, it's sort of a Zelda type game. It's like an isometric top-down adventure.
Okay.
But it harkens back to the days of yore when you would just pop a game into your system and play it and not know what was going on. So the crux of what makes Tunic really, really cool is that there's an in-game instruction manual, but most of it is written in like a made-up language that you obviously don't know. So as you play, you pick up pieces of the instruction manual that teach you everything from the basic controls to like tips and tricks to the map and that sort of thing. So the game is built around recovering pieces of the manual, and then you'll learn more about the game. Like you might not realize, if I press these two buttons together, there's like a different move I can do, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the gameplay is kind of like, I guess, Dark Souls like. That's a tired comparison, but it is like difficult bosses and things like that. And when you die, you have to get back to your ghost and pick up your money, sort of thing. But aside from the combat too, the game is also very like puzzle based, and you might not even realize it at first, but especially after you beat like the final boss, there's a lot of secrets to uncover, and there's so much stuff in the manual where you don't even realize it's a hint to a puzzle, but it's that like eureka moment when you realize, they're hinting me towards this. So it's just a really special game. I think it's really great to have a game that like harkens back to the old days of instruction manuals while modernizing it. It's, if you love mystery and a good action, and it's a good soundtrack too. It's a really, really special game. Honorable mentions include Roller Drome, which is a really great action game where you're on it's like Tony Hawk's on rollerblades, but you have to shoot guys to survive. It's like style.
I totally forgot about Roller Drome, and I feel bad about that because one of my best friends was one of the developers on it. Yeah, well, Vampire Survivors wins out, I'm afraid. But I totally agree with Ben's honorable mention there. It's an awesome game if you get the chance to play it.
It's really fun. Speaking of which, did you see that Game Maker's Toolkit, the YouTube channel, did a video about that?
Yeah, absolutely. They were thrilled with the response from that. It was really cool.
It was really cool. It made me happy too. I just watched that. Also, Overwatch 2, it's basically like a 1.1 update, but Overwatch is like my most played game and multiplayer game. So that coming out this year made me happy as well. And also the Cuphead DLC, the Delicious Last Course, was excellent as well. I also really want to play Neon White. That was a game I heard a lot of good things about this year, but haven't played yet. So that'll be on my short list for next year.
Okay, well, if we're doing honorable mentions, I should probably give Dark Romantic a mention, which I'm pretty sure I recommended back when it came out in the spring of 2022. It's a game for PC, although I believe it's also available on some consoles as well. And it's on the Switch. It is a city building puzzle video game in which players need to place hexagonal tiles of various biomes to create an idyllic landscape, match things up and meet challenges, requirements for the map. It's a nice...
This is a very good game.
Yes, it's a nice kind of game that you can just sit and do without, I don't know, without planning war against a neighbour or something like that. You know?
That's true. It's very relaxing, isn't it? It's quite zen, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
You can just sit there. Did you say it's on the Switch now as well?
Yeah, apparently it's on the Switch as well now. Yeah, it came out on the Switch in September.
Yeah, see, that sounds really nice.
Dorf
What's the name of it?
Romantic. Dorf, DORF, romantic with a K. All one word.
Okay. I definitely wouldn't have guessed that was the spelling.
No, you wouldn't. And it's interesting you mentioned it's Zen because it has that soundtrack to it as well. It reminds me of that. There used to be a word processor, a word processing website that you would load up. It might have been an app, I can't remember. You would load up and it would just play nice kind of ambient music while you typed with no menus. And it reminds me of that. Does anyone remember what that was called?
No,
Was it
I think I
Omwriter?
do.
Omwriter? Could it be Omwriter? Omwriter's
I don't
in my
think I've
head.
ever used software like that has music. And if there was any, I don't know if I would remember it being pleasant.
Yes, it is. I'm pretty sure. I've just loaded up Omwriter now, and it has the same kind of. Yes, it was definitely Omwriter. It had the same sort of atmosphere to it. I think a very sort of just gentle, clear, pastel-y, slightly musical sort of a place, and I got that with Dorf Romantic. So that's that. Big button time. Well, incredibly, that's our very first really useful podcast review of the year. So I'm amazed we've got to the end of it, and it took more than 10 minutes. So we clearly had a lot to talk about, our various suggestions for our categories. I will list them in the show notes with any relevant links that you may want to click on and learn more about them. And big thank you to Ben Stegner and Gavin Phillips for joining us this week. I guess all that is left to say is for you to follow us on Twitter, share us wherever you feel it relevant, and have a very happy and prosperous 2023. Until then, it's goodbye from all of us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.